Hello. I believe I'm live now. Say hello in the chat if you can hear me. I think only one person is currently there, but yeah. Hello. My name's Dom. There we go. Hello. Lovely to meet you, Dairy. Hi. So yeah, my name's Dom. This is me. I created a show called Mistholme, as you know. I think I have one other person who was here earlier and then maybe ducked out because I wasn't streaming yet. But yeah, I just wanted to do like a Q&A sort of thing to say hello, and because I figured that this is what people want is to I don't know, get to know me and get to ask the questions about the show and get something out of the Patreon, that sort of thing. I've never live streamed before, really, so yeah, I'm probably going to be rubbish at this, and my house is a bit of a mess because I live with a clothes maker, so there's just bolts of fabric everywhere, just in frame. But yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely to have some people who really enjoy the show, which is not super something I expected. Well, I hoped, but yeah, who could have seen it coming that people would really quite enjoy the show as much as they seem to do? And yeah, I don't know what to say except, do you have any questions for me? This is an inauspicious start, maybe. Oh, you do. Are they questions from that from the people of the Discord, perhaps? By all means, go on then. Yeah, by all means, Derry. So the audio tour guides for the time being, I think audio tour guide is its name, and its pronoun is it, because I think as a non-human entity, there's nothing wrong with it as the pronoun for a human, but particularly for a non-human entity, even beyond a non-binary entity, it's completely separate and has its own understanding of itself, and having started out as being treated as something of a tool, I've always kind of felt that it's just internalized that in a not terrible way. And yeah, I read the culture books by Ian M. Banks, and the drones in that use it as their pronoun, and I always liked that as being just a way to signify that they have a completely different place that they're coming from as sapient beings, where the notion of gender is completely separate to them. Yes, I've seen that. So yeah, for the time being, the audio tour guide, and at some point its name might change, but no need to give you spoilers like on where some things are going for that particular area. So yeah. It and its, indeed, yeah. What else do you have for me? So we've got the chat. Sorry, just seeing how this all works. We've got the chat here. All right, so the museum is a set physical location. Does it change location? Is it almost ever present and located everywhere? That's one of those things where I think it's more fun to not answer. I think that it's definitely a strange and totally impossible place, and I think that one of the things that a lot of writers, and like I have no right to shit on other people as writers, but one of the things that frustrates me is when people answer too many questions, especially about supernatural things. And I think that having the museum as something completely unknown, especially in an audio medium where it exists solely in the listener's head, that every single listener can have a different museum. in their heads and a different idea. And like, you know, I have an Australian accent. Liz, who has just started playing the head of restoration, has an Australian accent. Maybe it's set in Australia, but it doesn't have to be if you don't want it to be. Like, if you think, oh, it's just a couple of Australian accent and people happen to work there or whatever, yeah. And I have mentioned in the show that its form changes on the inside. Its layout shifts, and that's part of why the audio tour guide is necessary. But as for an exterior location, wherever you feel like. Yeah, like I did have, as I was developing the show, I kind of went through different ideas of where, like, oh, maybe it's like a bunker, maybe there's different museums, different places, sort of thing. And eventually I was just like, maybe that's right. If a listener thinks, oh yeah, to get to the museum, you go to like a bunker in the desert or something like that, and it's all underground. Sure, go for it. Because I think that it's more fun to let that be your idea than to just answer it. Because yeah, so yeah, it's whatever you think it is, and I honestly don't think that's a cop out because that's, yeah, I think that's more fun to let you as the listeners have your version of the museum. It's yeah, it's like the not quite like but yeah, living in the heart rather than the head thing from the Bacchus Road story. Yeah. Right, loved all of the different fantastical mythological elements in Mistholme so far. It's been fun seeing automaton and AI meeting mythological creatures, kelpies and doppelgangers. Especially love the exhibits touched by tragedy, like the horned boy and the changeling child. A Selkie's coat in the museum collection at some point or another. Well, I hadn't specifically thought of a Selkie's coat. Selkie is... I don't quite remember what a Selkie is. Give me a sec. Well, anything could appear in the museum, really. Selkie, let's ruin my... That's a... Right, it's the seal folk. Yes, right, the way they transform into the seal where they wear it. Maybe. That's totally something. I mean, I have plans for the sea. I have, every now and again I have a little story about the sea, because I mean that's spoilers, but yeah, like I think that there is. I've always felt there's something quite creepy about the sea and how unknowable it is, and like that's its own kind of aspect of weird fiction and of like horror fiction, is just like you've got all these different things that can happen in all these different places, but when it comes to the sea, it's always real creepy and it's always real unknowable. So maybe I'll do a story about a Selkie's coat. If anyone wants to back at $20, the $20 tier, you can guarantee I do a Selkie's coat. But yeah, okay, yeah, especially like toys. Yeah, so. Yeah, maybe. Don't feel pressured to back at $20 if you specifically want that. I just kind of for the tiers, I don't even like want. I struggled with coming up with tiers for the Patreon because I was just like, oh, I don't want to have people feel like they have to get the full story or anything, or they feel like they're being encouraged too much to back the show, or me, I guess. But then I was just like, well, people want to. Like people in fandoms, which I've never really been a part of a fandom so much, but I understand it. Like people want to be able to, I don't know, put their money put their money towards it and have like some sort of impact on it. So like being able to back at a high level and having things for that, I feel like was just something that people would want to do. So it's just like, oh, they can have the museum have their own impact on some stories for the museum. And I've for what the other listener who was here earlier and I don't think has returned to the live stream just yet. I have just the other day recorded a story based on the prompt given by her. So yeah, yeah. And what's next? What's next for questions? I do for seal folk. That's a Viking sort of thing, isn't it? I do have some. Do have a bit of a Viking inspired story coming up. Well, kind of Viking anyway, but it doesn't involve Selkies. In that version, maybe in the future. That's a fun idea. I do like to I do like to incorporate real myths and that sort of thing, and real parts of folklore, and also just real historical events, because that gives it a sense of connection to the real world. It gives it a sense of, you've heard stories before of these different things, but what you just heard when you're listening, when you go on a tour in Mistholme, you hear the true story. Like, you've heard of a Selkie's coat, for example. You go on a tour and you find out, oh, this is the real deal with Selkie's coats, that sort of thing. Which is you've heard the real what really happened with the man who met the devil at the crossroads, and the really happened with the girls who made some fake fairies. And I fudged the details and I changed the names and that sort of thing, just to make it a bit more otherworldly, just a bit, and make it feel like kind of dreamlike. So people can be like, oh, it's like a Mandela effect, I guess, where it's just like, oh, I thought I'd heard the version of this, but this is the actual story. So yeah. What else? What other questions do you have for me? Small tangent. I've only honestly started the wiki because I was sort of keeping notes on the show and had some friends really enjoy Mistholme. It'd be a fun way to participate on the note of fandom stuff. Sure. Yeah, I have. I'll admit to have had. Let's just keep scratching my face. My hair's really long at the moment. Yeah, I've edited wiki articles and stuff like that before. Like, just very occasionally, I'll just be browsing a wiki. I'll go in a wiki hole or something, and then I just see something that's not right. I'm like, I have to fix that. At one point I edited the John Wick wiki because the pronouns for the adjudicator were wrong, from John Wick 3. That's just a tangent for me there. But that's really it's really cool that there's a wiki for the show, and like, yeah, I totally get keeping notes and that sort of thing, and it'll be fun to see as maybe more people start engaging with the show and with the wikis, having the discussions. I'll try not to spy on you all too much of the discussions that you wind up having about the show and about some plot details, because I do have plans, but it's Blake as if created a voice for your own character. I do edit my own voice. It's cool and weird and sometimes fun. So my background before this was I worked in theatre. I was doing actually Mistholme. The point where Mistholme began was while I was on an internship at a theatre in Sydney. I live in Brisbane, Australia, and I went on an internship to Sydney, and I was just staying in an Airbnb every night. And I woke up one morning, I was just like, I want to do something creative. And in the time between waking up and the rehearsal starting in the morning, I had come up with the entire hello and welcome to Mistholme Museum of Mystery, Morbidity, Mortality. It wasn't Mistholme at that point. I workshopped that a bit, but the rest kind of came to me just in that. That's just a bit of backstory. So my audio editing background initially was more in sound design for theatre, which I think which does come through a bit in this, where I have the immersiveness and the presence. I try to have you as the listener kind of be in the same space as the action, and that's one of the advantages that theatre can have, I find. It's editing my own voice. I got used to that. I'm still really perfectionist about it, and I do more pickups than maybe is practical at times, because I'm really specific about it. But yeah, it's gotten to the point where I don't mind hearing my own voice. Everyone, when they first hear their own voice recorded, hates it. It's the worst. It doesn't sound like them. But over time, you get used to it. And honestly, my recorded voice and my voice that I hear in my head, they sound the same now. It can be cool. It can be weird. Finding the voice for the tour guide was interesting, because it's not quite the same as my voice. It's a bit more high. It's a little bit higher register. It's more enthusiastic. I end on a higher note sometimes, but then when I'm telling the stories, I have a bit more of a. I do a bit it's not quite Fry, but I put a bit more of an emphasis on the lower register, and I have a bit more gravitas to it. So yeah, creating a character voice for myself, for a character that I'm voicing, that sounds like me, and in a lot of ways is quite similar to me, but has its own differences, has been interesting and difficult. But by 17 episodes in, I am pretty confident with that aspect of it. As for the podcasting process, well, I mean, Yeah, I guess I've gotten more confident in other ways as well. Like when the first few episodes, first season, I mean, I only yeah, anyway. The first season, I used a few more stock sounds, like the first two seasons. The Mistholme chime was a stock sound from a stock library, the boom boom boom, and the backing sound from during stories, like the ambience. I created that on a website that allows you to create ambient sound, that sort of thing. And then and uh, the the logo, the Mistholme, the building upside down thing, that was done by my friend and collaborator and producer Zane. And then as time's gone on, I've replaced all of those with things that I've done myself because I've grown in confidence in that sort of thing. And it's like, oh, I have GarageBand on my laptop, so I'll make my own chime because I felt like, oh yeah. Well, I worked. Yeah, I'll finish this thought. I I felt that the moment where the guys has that moment of atonement with itself and gets uploaded to the box and that sort of thing, it becomes a new version of it. I thought that was a good time to change the chime to the more, I don't know, the more you know sort of vibe that it's got now, the more 80s sort of vibe, and the backing ambient track, I created that in GarageBand as well, and the new art. So yeah, the art that I worked with Zane to create the first art with the upside down building, and I like to keep I kept that ambiguous as to what that was. It's like, yeah, it's the museum, but is it the museum? It's very small and thin and weird, and it's upside down, and then after a certain point. I wanted to. I kept having notions to tweak it because apart from anything else, I realized, oh, the font that we used for this is the Assassin's Creed logo font, and I hate that I've used that. So I was just like, oh, let's tweak that, and then I was just like, the logo's a bit busy. There's so much. Like the title of this show is so long. One time, like I submitted it for an Australian Podcasting Award that did not wind up getting nominated for. But like I had to email them because the title of the show was too long for the entry field. It was like, hi, your character limit is 50, and my title is so ridiculously long that it's more than 50 characters. So yeah, I wanted more negative space in it so that I could have the logo text a bit bigger and just have it feel a bit more atmospheric by having the more space to have nothing in it and just have like the empty exhibit and that sort of thing. So I made that in the lead up to season 3 beginning, which is, I think, yeah, I like the name of the show is still the Mistholme Museum of Mystery, Morbidity, Mortality, but that's so much to have on a logo that I just decided, yeah, cut it down a bit, and you still get the same vibe of what the show is, but without it feeling so cluttered. Yeah, sucker for. Right. So yeah, just the stuff with the voice, like honey and chocolate and coffee and chocolate, and that is one of the. Yeah, so I do have an idea of where Mistholme is going. Like I have lots of ideas for where Mistholme is going, but at the same time, for the individual stories, often like something will grab me, or I'll just have an idea. Like I'll be for the mirrors. I think I was playing some game, and it's like, oh, there's a character trapped inside a mirror, and I was just like, a mirror, and I just I started writing the story about the boy talking to himself in the mirror and all that, and it kind of evolved, and eventually I was like, this is how they get out of like it's the different threads colliding in my own head. Like it's kind of a weird combination of planning and not planning, because it's how I'm planning. It's how I'm planning out where the story is going, but also it's just these disparate things coming together in my mind of the end of season 1. Well, I call them seasons. It's more like how much I can get together and to have a reasonable beginning and end sort of feeling while being able to keep up with the pace so I can actually write this show. So season 1 is mostly standalone. It starts to imply, it has like the introduction of the man with the voice and all that, because I was like, that's a fun recurring sort of thing to start introducing. And then at the end, we have, like, they go into lockdown, and then eventually I was like, well, how do we get out of lockdown? Who's responsible for lockdown? I've got all these ideas. I know what's going on in my head, and they're just like, they're slowly coalescing, and then I write the different stories to incorporate those ideas, and eventually it turns into a show along the way. So influences for the mirror stuff, it was just like, yeah, I guess just like there's plenty of stories have done stuff with mirrors, and like traveling through mirrors. That's a fairly common fantasy trope. It was just like a kind of like, yeah, me gravitating towards that because something I was looking at had a mirror in it, and I was like, yeah, that's, yeah, and yeah, it's the external influences for Mistholme in general is kind of what I kind of get interested in as I'm writing, or as I'm trying to come up with another story. Like the way that, like, a lot of people like to say, oh, I'm writing a show, or what, I'm writing something that I would want to read or I would want to watch, and like, I don't know. I think for me, I'm writing a story that I want to write. I don't know if I'd listen to Mistholme. It's impossible for me to say, but I enjoy writing it. And one of the things with the construction of when I was building up what the show was before I had many stories written was that I wanted it to be able to expand. I wanted to, like, not to cast shade on much more successful people, but I remember I used to listen to Welcome to Night Vale, and there was a point where the story was getting bigger and bigger and more intricate. I think it was The Old Oak Doors was what it was called, was like this big two-parter. And then at the end of the two-parter, everything kind of went back down, and it was just like episode of the week or whatever you call it, sort of just like, oh, we're not doing the integrated story stuff in here so much right now. And I'm just like, that lost me. So the idea of what I was thinking of for me was bigger and bigger, and eventually it'll end when everything kind of comes together. It'll ebb and flow for sure, but it'll always be getting bigger and changing. And I hope that people like the direction that it changes as it shifts into. But what it's more about is keeping me interested. And keeping me, like, I can only write so many standalone stories set in a museum before I'm like, what if we're leaving the museum? What's next? So yeah, that's kind of an influence for me, is looking at other shows that I've seen that kind of didn't keep going in a way that grabbed me, and thinking, okay, how do I keep this going in a way that does? So yeah, that's that. How are Calvin and Teapot doing? All right, give me a sec. So this one's Calvin. I'll just get rid of it. All right. This is Calvin. He doesn't like being held super much. Say hello. This one, here's mine. He's a very good boy. He doesn't like being held as much as Teapot. I'll grab Teapot in a sec, and he will let me hold him for longer. But yeah, how you doing, buddy? He's been all right. Yeah, yes. What are you doing? He's just accepting it. Calvin, all right, you can get down if you want. All right, I will go get Teapot. One sec. Teapot will let me hold him for much longer. He belongs to my housemate. He's much more a cuddle cat. So let's see. Calvin mostly keeps to himself. He's a bit of a loner. He just wants to snooze somewhere else. Teapot loves jumping up on my lap when I'm trying to edit. So I'm just like, he's just here, and I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm just trying to got the mouse over here, and he's just like, yeah, okay, whatever you're doing, I don't care. I'm just sitting here. And sometimes, like, I'll get up to get a cup of tea or something, I'll come back and he's just on my chair and it's like, this is what I wanted. I just wanted this chair. You were incidental. So I don't know if that's helping, but he's very present sometimes. Yeah, they're good to have around for emotional support sometimes, that's for sure. Okay. If you want to go, you can go. Yeah, they're good boys. And now I just see his shedding fur just like draping down over my laptop and on my mic and all that. Cameo from Teapot's butthole. Yeah, that's them. I am definitely more of a cat person. You may see that in upcoming episodes. The cat person nature. Yeah. Any other questions coming in? Nascent and artificial. I can never keep like it's maybe not great that I have no idea which episodes are which, but I just like I don't write the story right. Nascent and artificial. The box would be the box is a good one. Nascent, Sam's Guitar, and the Clockwork Girl. Yeah, that's yeah. So favorites are well. Not very good. Thank you. Well, part of what my hope for the show is that every single story is someone's favorite, because like I change the genre, I change the style, I change the tone. Some are very funny, some are very funny, but also like I think that like Daniel feels very silly, but then like the idea of not wanting to be misidentified, misgendered, that's gonna connect with the sort a lot of the people that that enjoy this sort of show. I think that the Lantern might be not necessarily my favorite, but one of the ones where I'm just like, that feels well written, that feels like a good story. The ones where so episode wise, I write the stories and then later I like slot them into place, and in some cases especially for the museum based meta narrative stuff, I have planned that ahead, and I write that as separate, and I know where it's going to go, and I slot it in together, sort of thing. There's just cat hair floating around me now. It's like an aura. Where, especially for season 3, I have like straight up planned out where all the story beats happen in the episodes to make for the pacing, which is why season 3 wound up being 12 episodes instead of 10, because I was like, this needs to breathe a little bit, because it's there's more story segments, there's more ground we need to cover. There were a bit towards the end where I was just like, this needs to feel foreshadowed, so it needs more episodes to be present in, that sort of thing. So episodes wise, I have trouble keeping track of which episode is which, because like I write the stories and then I write the meta stuff, and then I slot them in an Excel based mostly around like some thematic relevance. I'm just like, oh, for the like, what was the one I had? The Helena Fortuna and the Doubloon, obviously both naval themed ones, and like especially for every season, I think that stuff tends to get a little darker towards the end. Another one was the Clockwork Girl. The Clockwork Girl and the guitar. I think I wanted them to kind of like counterbalance each other as one. Yeah, I guess I don't have favorite episodes so much because I kind of don't write them as episodes for the most part. Favorite stories, like The Lantern, maybe. Old Bacchus Road, I like a lot. The Changeling, Old Bacchus Road and Changeling, obviously, are kind of emotionally resonant for me and probably for some people listening for reasons that aren't too ambiguous. Favorite tropes. Apparently, I like writing stories involving children. That just keeps coming up, and I think it's maybe just a little bit of, I don't know if it's laziness, because it's very easy to have children's motivations be clear in such a short story, word count, that sort of thing. You kind of like children tend to fixate on one thing and have one character trait that you can at a time, and that can feel realistic, even if for an adult they would seem shallow. One second, I think that I might be. 1 second. Reaching some sort of limit apparently on this thing. We might need to swap to a different session. I don't know. I'll just keep talking and hopefully it stays live. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah. So children, I think are like they tend to appear in the sort of narratives that I'm writing. In historical examples as well, like fairy tales and folk stories, you often find children in them. Even when I'm writing basing off real pre-existing stories, or if I'm writing completely original ones, often there winds up being a child in there because it just feels kind of right to have a child in these sorts of stories. They're not quite fables, but they're similar in that sort of historical fictional context to fables, so it makes sense to have children in them, I think. So yeah, I guess having a child's perspective is something that I often kind of have in these stories. And obviously automata, I have a few automata characters as well. I've got the Clockwork Mother and the Audio Tour Guide. Yeah. And yeah. The question is about the curator of the museum and the obscurity around the curator. That's so intentional. I think that's one of those things where it's more fun to leave it ambiguous. Maybe the curator is a single person, maybe it's a bunch of people, maybe it's a figurehead, maybe it's me. Who knows? Certainly the curator and other people in the museum probably become more important as time goes on, as the scope expands, but for the time being, the curator, I'm leaving that one ambiguous for you guys. Hydrate. Yeah, the live stream seems to still be going, so I don't know what that notification I got was about. But yeah, any more questions? This is going okay, I think. I didn't really expect anyone to show up, so the fact that you've shown up and had so many questions, it's been very good. Oh, okay, that's fine. That's totally fine. Was there anything else about the show that occurs? So what I do for the show generally is I write out the stories ahead of time when a story occurs to me, when an idea occurs to me, and it kind of shapes in my head, and other ideas might kind of coalesce into be part of the story, and then eventually I'm just like, I've got the full story in my head, and I just get it out onto the page, sort of thing, and then I send it to Zane, who is the head. They are the head of That's Not Canon Productions, the production network, podcasting network, and ask for notes. And increasingly lately, for the last while, the notes has been nice, no notes, and I'm just like, ha ha ha. Okay, really, any notes, please? Because I have no idea if anything I'm writing is good generally, because imposter syndrome and all these different fun little brain things. So yeah, I send the stories off, and if Zane says they're good, then we record. Then we slot them into different spots and record them and put the episodes out there. Other influences as far as I'm just thinking about previous questions now and looking through them. Just like anything more I wanted to add. just feel free to post the question when you have it. I don't tend to listen to other audio drama foreign influence. Like people like to. There's overlap with the Magnus Archives and Archive 81. I think is two of the bigger ones. With like fandoms and people comparing, and like I haven't listened to either of them, and probably won't because like I don't want to. Imposter syndrome is a wild thing, and like if I was listening to the Magnus Archives today, and like I heard a plot point, and I was like, oh, I had actually thought of having that, or I wound up later on thinking of a similar thing, I would probably then be like, oh, I can't do that because this other show already did something similar. I'd be like, what if I'm subconsciously stealing that? So yeah, I very much would. I think I probably like them, but I don't listen to other audio dramas for the most part. I listen to a few actual play podcasts, like Friends at the Table. I like that one a lot. Listen to the first season, I guess, of Adventure Zone. But yeah, still typing. No worries. I don't think we're not getting anyone else. Yeah, Balance was the first one. Yeah, I listened to that when it was coming out, and it was really good. And I didn't really connect with anything that they've done since. And I don't really engage with much McElroy Brothers stuff these days. I kind of tend to fall off things after a while. Anyway, yeah, I enjoyed Balance a lot. I play D&D in real life. Last night I played. Actually, I run one campaign and I'm a player in another. It's fun. It's one of my favorite little pastimes. Let's see. Yeah. Other than Mistholme, I'm also just like a podcast editor. I do contract work for other people, like editing their shows. I'm currently working as the sound designer and editor on a audio drama adaptation of like some Australian children's books. So that's going well. I've started writing a novel just because I like having too much on my plate. Just sometimes things just occur to me and I start writing them out, and sometimes they turn into Mistholme stories and sometimes they don't. And this one I'm just like, no, this is a novel. Yeah. How many more we got coming there, Derry? Mm-hmm. So the AI union, yeah, I've noticed your display name. I actually specifically said like no AI unions was pretty ropeable about that one, to be honest. Yeah, so they accumulate artifacts like the voice to ID. It's sort of Mistholme Museum. Yeah. One of the things that I identified as a characteristic for the museum as a whole, and for by extension the people who work there, is that they kind of do what they do because it's what they do. There doesn't need to be a deeper motivation for them. It's like, well, yes, the museum should exist. We collect artifacts. Other people can come and see them. We take care of them, and in some cases we put them in storage to protect other people from them. It's like profit motive is ambiguous, whether or not there's probably not shareholders, that sort of thing. It's just one of those things where the people who come to work at the museum see it as, I guess, their purpose, but they probably wouldn't even say purpose. It's just like, well, this is what we do. And it's the workers the workers have decent rights. I think that. Are we back? Say hello if you can see me. Sorry about that. I've not used this crowdcast thing before. It's just what Patreon was just like, hey, this is what you have a free trial of this. Use this, and it was just like, what about YouTube? You need a 24-hour. Yeah. Anyway, what question was I talking? Look at that. Yeah. Any more questions? What do we got? Ask a question. You bring one creature. I mean, I guess like the audio tour guide is the one with the most developed. Yeah. Character or creature. No, just be careful remembering which ones have actually been released yet. I guess the audio tour guide, because yeah, it seems like a nice little thing to have around and be able to talk to. Who's to say that any of these things don't? You know what? Also, bull. Having a lovely bull, just hang around, just pet. My partner would like that a lot. Just like, yeah. Well, yeah, that was a fun one to write. Just be like, yeah, what if there was just a really nice bull, and instead of like being a bull in a china shop, it was really careful. Yeah. So yeah, I guess it'd just be nice to have bull. Yeah, that was the Clockwork Family. I mean, one of the first stories that I wrote for the show. And yeah, I think that was the first one where I was just like, yeah, let's get emotional. That one was. Yeah, that's a good one, and I'm enjoying that. I'm keeping that being a part of the show going forward. Yeah, they are. It's a sad story, but it's a good one. Who's to say that man doesn't already exist? Yeah, my dream casting idea is just like you'll know the show has been doing okay if we finally actually have the man appear and it's John Hamm's voice, because like who else is casting? Who else has got that voice? That's yeah. Yeah. Other than that, most of the things in this show are kind of terrifying to think about existing. The old Bacchus Road, actually, just like a place that exists to make your head feel okay. I think that'd be nice. Yeah. Right. Do you have any more questions for me? Hello, Discord. I mean, yeah, I was a bit like, oh, there's a Discord at the people liking the show. Yeah. I guess I can join if you guys want. I understand. Like Zane joined the other day just to be like, oh, hello, people. I don't. Yeah, I don't know how. It feels weird even like talking about having fans for something I work on or other. But yeah, like I don't really. I'm very conscious of wanting to have the people who enjoy the show be able to enjoy it and not fit like separate to me. I guess I don't know if you guys. Yeah, I like. Yeah, there's something about the idea of having the creator of a thing hanging out in the Discord with people discussing it. I don't know if that's how fandoms like to operate. I've never really been in a fandom to that extent before to know how that works. But yeah, it's very nice that there are people out there who really like the show. That's crazy. I mean, there's people out there who like it enough to put money behind it, which, yeah. I appreciate every one of you, and yeah, wanting to, yeah, I don't know how to phrase these, like, wanting to express my appreciation and affection for all of you while also not doing my best not to create any kind of parasocial relationship with you, because that's always kind of feels like an uneven equation for the people involved. But thank you so much, everyone. Oh, okay. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. I do have Discord. I'm in a couple of Discords, so maybe we'll see how I feel. And yeah, I'll keep an eye on all your theories, and do my best to change the story completely if you guys are getting too close, because that's a really good idea that good writers do. Yeah, cat hair. Are there any other questions? Thank you. Yeah, this is from a show. I don't know if Dangerfield exists outside of Australia, but this is from a place called Dangerfield, where all of the queers shop. It is where we get all of our fashion vibes. It's very busy, very loud, and very fun. So yeah, just wearing my Sunday best for you today, Derry. Well, yeah. I mean, if that's all, I mean, I don't think I'm very interesting. I don't know. We can do this more often. We can do this again. We will do this again, I'm sure. And maybe, sorry about my eye doing that sometimes. That when I get distracted, it kind of yeah. This has been nice. It's been nice. I was worried that it would feel weird, but it's felt fairly natural. I've just been able to just talk my head off at you, and you've been acting like it's at all interesting. So thank you so much, Derry. Yeah, and I think I'll end things there. And we might do this again sometime. I don't know. Maybe I'll stream playing a video game at some point. I don't know if that's something that people want. Like this whole Patreon thing. I don't know what people want. I think people probably might want bonus content of like narrative stuff, but I don't know if I can keep up with that. I'll probably. What's something? Well, that's a question for you. What's something that people would want from Derry? What's something people would want from a Patreon that I'm not currently offering? Is there anything that occurs to you? Put you on the spot. Bloopers. They're not that interesting from me. Mostly, it's mostly me. Mostly going. It's like getting tongue tied and going. Say the word correctly, sort of thing. Yeah. Bloopers. I'll keep that in mind if there's anything. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind if there's any interesting bloopers that come along. I might be able to do a compilation at some point. Yeah. Mostly bloopers for me wind up just being strange mouth sounds and like accidental clicks and that sort of thing, or Zane and I sitting in the studio waiting for the people outside to finish making their coffee louder than anyone's ever stirred a cup in their lives. Just yeah, sure. Yeah, I will. So that's Liz. The head of restoration is played by Liz Best. She is the host of a couple other shows on That's Not Canon. One is called Ghosts of Boyfriends Past. Another is called Castology. Ghosts of Boyfriends Past is probably guess is talking to people about relationships and that sort of thing. I might appear on that at some point, talking about how it is dating with autism. Too much info. Yeah, no, I will definitely. Yeah, I'll definitely be like doing a hey, this is Liz sort of post at some point on the socials. As soon as she gets around to sending me her headshot. Yeah, it's other people. That's not canon. It's mostly just me and Zane that have fingers on Mistholme. I kind of make it by myself, but yeah, that's an idea. Yeah. Yeah. We've recorded all of Liz's lines, give or take, any pickups or anything. So yeah, that's Any other ideas? Just mining you for info. Okay, I will do my best to have a good weekend. I need to be catching up with some editing for the other project, and I'll probably get distracted writing for another project entirely. But I promise the Mistholme will not be delayed. Thank you so much for coming along. I'm glad that anyone at all was here, and I'm glad that you had plenty to be talking to me about and active about. So yeah, it's been very nice. Again, meeting you, and maybe I will join that Discord. We'll see. Thanks so much for being here, and stay safe out there.